Welcome to Stribling's New York. I'm your host, Rob Taub, on WOR AM Radio 710 on your digital dial and iHeartMedia company. Stribling's New York is a show about business, culture, and people. We have a wide range of guests from authors, producers, actors, artists, athletes, restaurateurs, as well, of course, as people from the world of real estate who can help you buy, sell, or rent a home or apartment. We have a really great show today, and leading us off is Ron Swoboda, former Major League Baseball player, now broadcaster, best remembered, of course, as a member of the Miracle Mets in 1969 who made the catch known as The Catch. How are you, Ron?
I'm great, Rob. Nice to talk to you, man. How's it going?
It's going well. You and I talk about a variety of subjects whenever we get together, and one thing we're passing on in this show, this is our apolitical show, but I have plenty of baseball stuff to discuss with you. And as the season's been kicking off, and I'm getting older, and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s watching pitchers like Ferguson Jenkins and Steve Carlton and Gibson and Seaver. And I hate to be one of those guys that says, years ago we had, but years ago, were they better? I understand that things have changed in terms of we now have long relievers that are really more effective than they were in the old days. And now when you have a short relief guy, you have an enormous amount of saves. I think in 1969, Fred Gladding won Fireman of the Year, and I think he had 29 saves. So that's different. But I wonder about the big dominant pitchers. Is things different today? Are things different today?
Yeah, I think if you just look over, and we're talking Major League Baseball, I assume.
Yes, sir.
That all these guys, position players and pitchers, are for the most part bigger, stronger, better trained, more attuned to video coaching. You got exacta stats and escape velocities and all kinds of things they're measuring now. These guys have more information than probably is good for their brains, but the fact is, I think they're bigger, stronger guys with a much clearer sense of what they're trying to do out there on the mound.
Well, I mean, I love the Mets pitching staff, and I love Syndergaard especially, and I think DeGrom is a great pitcher. And obviously, we have selective memories. I just don't know if I see the consistency today with any pitchers, and I also wonder if young players have the desire as much to want to be a pitcher. Is it more glamorous or to follow up and be a hitter? I mean, we don't have the great fielders anymore either. If I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, I understand. That one's a hard question to answer. I'm not inside these guys' heads. I do baseball at the AAA level here in New Orleans.
Well, you're seeing them coming up then.
The New Orleans Zephyrs. And so I see guys, I see the guys that are moving up, bubbling up the talent, the prospects. And then you see guys that, have failed or are injured and sort of come down to you from the big leagues. And they all sort of meet in that AAA level. And it's interesting because, I watch a lot of baseball and I watch a lot of baseball games, and I think the thing that I think all pitching coaches are going for, and if you just use the Mets pitching staff as the this is a good sampling of what you have around Major League Baseball. You've got Syndergaard, who's probably the hardest thrower. You've got Cologne out there, occasionally dipping below 70 with his changeup or something, and very rarely getting into the 90s with anything. Doesn't have much of a slider. Will throw it once in a while. So you've got him and everybody else in between, and they succeed. Why? They succeed when they command the stuff that they have with movement. Command with movement. Look at Syndergaard when he gets behind in the count, and these big league hitters, are jacked up for number one, and he gets tapped around a little bit. Not ripped and torn to shreds, but he gets hit. You know that. So I look at it as, you know, when Syndergaard, you know, if 98, 99 probably has, you know, thrown a few pitches triple digits, when he can't command that and get ahead of major league hitters, he gets in a little bit of trouble. It's the same thing for Bartolo Colon at the other end of the, you know, MPH spectrum, and you know, if he's not careful, and he has to obviously be a little more surgical, a little more careful, but if he's not pitching to zones and setting guys up, he gets in trouble with balls out over the plate in a big way. I mean, he's batting practice. When he loses it, he looks like batting practice. When he's doing it, when Colon is doing it, you look at him and you still go, what the hell's this guy doing? How's he getting these guys out?
I guess what I'm looking at it maybe as, and obviously, I mean, I'm a big fan of Syndergaard, and he throws with such incredible velocity. Yeah, it is. I still wonder, you know, there seems to be a lack of consistency even with the great pitchers today. But then you have a tremendous amount of talent hitting-wise as well. I think when you were talking about training, I mean, I remember reading Derek Jeter's off-season workout regimen, and it's like mind-boggling. I know back in the day, nobody worked that hard in spring
David
training.
Wright does now in you know, 2 or 3 times as much, you know.
Well, I mean, I really also like DeGrom. Where do you think he's going, pitching-wise, in terms of his future?
Well, you know, with the back problem, you know, you looked at him and you probably, you know, you probably thought, here's a guy that, you know, that can power up on you with a pretty good breaking ball, and yet lost some velocity and you know, and had to figure out, you know, how to figure out some things. Was he hurting himself? Was he going to have to change a little bit of the you know, he seems like as long as he's healthy, and you never know what healthy means with these. Look at numbers. I mean, if a guy comes out of a game injured, you know something's wrong. But there was a pretty good drop in velocities. DeGrom all of a sudden was low to mid 90s, and you know that sounds like pretty good stuff to me. You know, you'll see left-handers like Bastardo throwing 90, 91 by guys. Okay, up. If he locates it where he wants it, up and not down in the fat part of the zone. So sometimes, you know, velocities are a little overstated. It's still how you use your stuff, what you come with next to set up the next pitch, to set up the next pitch, and how you locate all of that stuff. You know, it's still such a magical thing going on in the strike zone. When you watch, that's why I like television baseball so much, because if I watch a ball game and can't see the strike zone and can't see what's going on between the pitcher and the hitter and where's the catcher sitting and where's he want what kind of pitch, if I can't see that, I feel like I've missed 3/4 of the game.
I agree with you. Pitching's really important to me. I studied it when I was a kid. I wasn't very good at it, but I was still fascinated by it because I think it's an art and a science. And I love the physics of it. And when you're throwing great stuff, and it's just a remarkable thing to watch. And I agree, watching it on TV right now, especially with high def, is the best way to do it.
Well, you know, and the other guy that has eluded our conversation, Matt Harvey. You know,
I was about to go there.
Clearly, a guy who came out of Tommy John surgery with less stuff than he went into it with. Now, is he developing it to that point? You know, I'm seeing fastballs topping out at 95. You know, there's a whole lot of guys would like to have 95, but, you know, 95 is considered like an average big league fastball, depending on who the pitcher is. You know, left-handers get away with something there that, you know, we don't all understand the magic of distaff, you know, of the wrong armers. But you know, Harvey is not the same kind of pitcher, but he can be successful.
Well, how much does he have to adapt his game?
Outing against San Diego, you know, he can be successful. Although, do you discount the success with San Diego's lineup. I don't know. I think Harvey can be successful with what he has at this point in his recovery, because he might still be recovering from Tommy John.
Well, here's another consideration too.
To something.
I'm going to blame a little bit on folks like me. I mean, the media there's a lot of pressure under players now because we're in the 24/7 media sphere. I mean, back when I was watching baseball as a kid, it was like I remember when I first heard Ron Guidry finally speak, I was like, wow, this guy's got an accent, He's, oh, gee, I never knew that.
That was ancient history, Rob.
I was actually already out of college then, but, you never really saw much interaction between players and the media because there was just not the time, or it was all done by print journalists. And now the pressure on a guy like Harvey to perform, it's like it's one bad outing and you have, 9 people on different podcasts and television shows going, he's through, he's finished, he should quit.
Look, the other thing is the Mets have to score some runs for him. He hasn't pitched all that poorly, but I don't think he's quite the same guy. I don't think he's quite the dominant guy that he was before. You're not seeing any 97, 98 mile an hour heaters from him that you can. Sometimes you get it up close to 100, you're going to overpower guys anywhere in the zone. But you're not seeing as many of those. But at the same time, I'll take what Matt Harvey's got with using his changeup a little bit more with movement. And, the slider is a little smaller, I think, but it's still not bad. Coming behind, 94, 95, I think, he's got everything anybody could want to succeed.
Well, what's going on now in AAA? Is there a real pressure on all these young pitchers to come up and throw the blazing heat and have to be in the high 90s in order to be considered? And is that why there's going to be more Tommy John surgery?
Look, there's no question that velocity is the gold standard for prospects, okay, and guys to succeed, because let's face it, velocity at a certain point is a winner. But as I've said to you, I see more guys now, and I talk to pitching coaches at the AAA level, and I said to them, I just see more big guys throwing 95 and above now. Are you guys experiencing the same thing? And every one of them said to me, yeah, you just see more good stuff, okay, more capability. And I think these guys, they're training their bodies, they're doing all this core work, they've got the analytics so that their motion is more efficient, and they're capable, I think, of more guys capable of just throwing harder. Does that explain the fact that over the last 3 or 4 years we've had a record number of Tommy John surgeries, elbows blowing out? Probably has something to do with it, because if you're putting, to throw a ball in, mid-90s and do it with today's technique, okay? You remember, I don't know if you've seen pictures of Tom Seaver and Jerry Kuzman, who are, sort of my era guys. And
I watched them growing up, of course.
Seaver always had, Seaver was a drop and drive guy. You always saw that
dirty knee
on his back, on his right knee, because he got so low across the mound, and when he was delivering it, he used his hips and legs a lot more. Now you see guys, it's not that they're not using their hips and legs, but they want these guys standing tall and throwing down on you and getting that downward sort of plane on the ball, on their fastball, and I think standing tall like that transfers a lot more of the pressure to your elbow, and that release, that you see what an elbow does during a pitcher's delivery in slow motion. You shouldn't be eating when you watch it, because it's pretty repulsive looking. It looks like you're distorting the joint, the shoulder and the elbow, in a way that it's especially, it's hard to watch.
Well,
it doesn't look like something you ought to be doing.
Speaking of eating in baseball, I wonder what Mickey Lolich threw. He didn't use his legs. I wonder if that belly powered him. There's a blast from the past.
He sort of did. I faced him, and he was a tough guy, and
great stuff.
But I love the story about Lolich because he was always like, he says, I like this big beer gut I got. He says, we got a lot of guys in Detroit sitting there, at the bar in front of the TV with a beer in front of them who are looking at me going, hell, that guy's not in any better shape than I am. He liked that. It fed his fans, but he was a good pitcher, and he did use his legs more. And I think back then there was this theory of getting a little lower and using your legs to drive the action more so than today, where these guys do use their legs, but that front leg, you watch guys throwing over that straight front leg. They're throwing against that front leg now, whereas Seaver and Kuzman and those guys, that front leg was bent.
Hey, there used to be pitchers in the 60s that threw sidearm, and they never lasted a season, usually throwing across their body.
Well, but there's a trade-off always. You see guys that, like Andrew Miller, the Yankees closer now, really. You watch him step across his body, but what he accomplishes with it is a great angle and movement on the ball, and he's learned to command all of that stuff. We saw him come through here years ago through New Orleans as a minor leaguer, and all he was low and away, high and outside. Low and away, high and outside. He couldn't zero it. They moved him to the other side of the mound, and all of a sudden he's throwing strikes, and they're not very hittable strikes. And so, sometimes little things like that create big changes in guys'
well, it's the nuances
rate.
But the nuances
bottom
of
line
physics.
Is finding some way to command it, because in all this accelerated stuff I see at the minor league level, the guys are here because they can't command it, because they get up there and big league hitters are smarter and they have a better strike zone, and if you can't get ahead of them, you're not going to win in the big leagues pitching behind in the count.
Oh, I got a great story for you before we wrap up. I remember Sonny Jurgensen, we talk about having a big belly, was up there. Wasn't as fat as Mickey Lolich, but a sports writer said to him, Sonny, how do you throw with that belly? And he goes, I don't. I throw with my arm. Also, a fan once threw a rock from the stands and hit him at Giant Stadium, and he said, that guy's got actually it was probably Yankee Stadium back in the day, guy's got a better arm than I do. Ron, thanks so much for joining us, and I hope to see you when you're visiting New York at a Mets game. We'll go to the Acela Club for some food.
Yes, and our friend Tracy Neporn will be close by, and
I hope so.
I hope to make that combination.
All right, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Rob, anytime.
Bye.